and this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
All right, you have it now, and I'll get the other ones.
Okay, we're live. Aloha, everybody. Oh, I'm getting feedback. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at revolution.radio, and I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Thomas Becker, and our guest today is Rudi Rudenski. And Rudi had a significant near-death experience, this NDE, while on a special assignment in the military. And this NDE changed his understanding of how the world operates. He saw a spaceship square. He is keenly aware of the Watchers. He was abducted at least once with lost time. He saw the post-apocalyptic world. There are lots of spiritual beings out there just waiting to help you with your learning. And Rudi says his spiritual practice is kindness, all else is brute survival. And on the show, we're going to talk about a lot of different things, near-death experiences, how he was captured by the Greys, and he met the off-worlders. And I have a whole list on aquarianradio.com. I made a page for Rudi, and I invite you to go over there and read. He's got a very long, amazing story. I hope he's writing a book soon. And he's going to tell us some things I don't think we've heard anywhere else before. So, Dr. Lessin, do a little sound check before I pull in Rudi. Are you there, Dr. Lessin?
Yes. Is my sound? Check my sound out, yes.
Yes, we're checking your sound out. You seem to be coming in loud and clear. Anything you want to say before we bring on Rudi?
Yeah, indeed. I think that some of you may have even had, and not even remember it, near-death experiences yourself that have drastically changed you, and you can deliberately evoke those. I will attach to the program or show some way to actually rehearse, as it were, or perhaps access near-death experiences and all the wisdom that comes with them. So after we hear Rudi for a bit, and you can think of what happened to him and imagine you going through your own version of it.
Alrighty, we'll do that. And Rudi, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
We're excited. I was reading about your information. I kept getting more and more excited because I like new things. And you're going to talk. Your experiences are like mine, but somewhat different. So go ahead. Where would you like to start? You said you wanted to start with the near-death experience.
Well, I think you even have to go back before the near-death experience. In the hero's journey, the bad guy turns into a good guy, hopefully at the end. I was brought up in West Texas, and my outlook on life was that anybody that wasn't like people like me, I believe that God hated them. And not only hated them, wanted them to die, and wanted me to kill them. So I felt as if I was the person, the vicar of God, so to say. I've often called myself a Christian jihadist.
So we're all supposed to die if we didn't believe like you.
Right. And whenever I say hate, I thought God really hated you. If you didn't believe what I believe, and that was the I don't know what we would call it, the evangelical Christian version of Christianity. But my version of Christianity was way beyond evangelical. It was to the point of God hates you and is going to send you to hell if you're not just like the people that were my version of Christians.
Wow. So you apparently got over that. Tell us how that happened.
Well, I began to fantasize about having I wanted to be, what do you call it? I wanted to fly an aircraft into the Kremlin with a nuclear bomb attached so I could destroy communism. That was my fantasy growing up. And so at 15 years old, I became a pilot. I took lessons, and I paid for my lessons. And then I joined the military, and I was moving towards this idea of destroying communism myself personally. And so I thought, well, if I could kill a few million people, it would change the world. So it sounds a whole lot like 9/11. Of course, you can imagine the Christian version of it with me.
Right.
And so I joined the military, and I went through all kinds of training on how to kill people and murder people. And that was my daily fantasy. And I was always planning and plotting and scheming about how to kill people. And then we were about to go to war with Iran, or we never did at that time, but we were really close to it. And we started planning that war. And it's kind of like The Secret. Have you ever, the book, The Secret, right? You imagine what you want, and then all of a sudden it starts to happen in your life. And so I was imagining this fantasy of destroying communism, of killing every Muslim on earth, of destroying every bad guy that was out there, at least in my opinion. All the agnostics, atheists, liberals, communists, anybody who, wasn't one of people that were like me. And so the secret was happening in my life. I was moving forward. We were preparing to go and start a world war, which would have been what would have happened if we had gone to war with Iran. And then I was on my way in my little car, driving to a base that was going to, where we're going to lay out our plans for going to war with Iran. And I was detoured off the road by a flash flood. Okay, the Road turned really narrow, and then my car, while I'm going down this road, the water starts rushing across the road. And it was really a terrible night, and the wind was whipping, the water was rushing, and my car was driven off the road, and it started rolling into a cornfield. And
wow.
It was as if I was being detoured. Imagine, if you would, what a terrible thing it would have been for my secret to have come true.
Right.
You know, the
intervention.
You know, sometimes things happen in our lives, and there are other players involved, and it wouldn't have been a good idea maybe to go and drop a nuclear bomb on Moscow or to start a world war. So
yeah, I get that.
Did you ever consider the possibility that your own inner brakes got you to mess up with your car so that you wouldn't do that secret, because you have the opposite side of you going too, but it was subconscious, but it came out and overpowered you then?
Well, I think some people call it your higher self. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but something didn't want me to make it to that military base.
I
mean, I don't believe in chance. I don't believe in luck. What I believe is what I learned in my near-death experiences was that our decisions create other decisions, and other decisions, I call them if-then-else statements. There's no such thing as luck.
Well, let's stay on the story, and then we'll go to the philosophy. Yeah, because you left me. You were rolling around in the. Okay, so the storm took you off the road, and what happened then?
Okay, as my car started rolling into the cornfield, my head went through the windshield of my car, and I died instantly. And as I died, I was thrown out of my body. My soul was, and I went into a really, really dark place. It was pitch black, darkness. There was nothing around that I could see, but I just knew that was not where I wanted to be. But while I was there, I had a life review. I saw every moment of my life flashing before my eyes in 3D, as if I was actually there watching it. And in that life review, I was given a way different life review than what you might have expected from a young psychopath. I was shown.
You young psychopath, you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Here I am, plotting and scheming the destruction of the world, and and yet I wasn't shown the ugliness that I had done in my lifetime. I wasn't shown the ugly thoughts that I had thought. I wasn't shown my plotting and scheming. I was shown instead the beautiful moments of my life. But now, what was really important were those moments whenever I was actually with somebody who cared for me, and I would be in a setting like out in nature, fishing, or just looking over a sunset or a sunrise. And I was a pilot, and so I would see from behind my head through the cockpit, I would see the landscape out in front of me, flying through clouds or over a river. I saw every time that anyone was ever kind to me. Now, what was absent from that is what was important. I wasn't very kind to anyone else. There wasn't much of me that reciprocated kindness or love or compassion. So my video that I had, like this 3D video, was very short. I mean, I just didn't have a lot, because what I had done for others at that point was insignificant. Now, what I did know also was that, eating, working, sex, pooping, things like that, they were just like fast forwarded past. Anything that I did that was ugly was just like not important. I was just shown this very small part of my life that was worth having. And then as I have reviewed my life from the moment of birth all the way to that moment where I was driving in that car crashing, I went back inside of my car and I came back into my body. And then my car kept on rolling. And I smashed through the side windows and the other side window. And 3 times I went through the window. And I was launched out of my body again, my soul. And into that darkness I went. This time I didn't know what to do. I wasn't confused exactly, but I looked up. And when I looked up, I saw a little tiny point of light. And I didn't know where I was in that darkness. Some would call it hell. I don't know what you would call it, but I just knew I didn't want to be there. So I looked up, and then I went in the direction of the light, kind of like Superman, or lifting up in the air. And I started going up inside of this tunnel. And as I was going further and further up in the tunnel, the darkness that was on me kept on falling off. It's kind of like a washing machine. And the darkness kept on falling off of me. And as I got further and further up into the tunnel, I noticed that the colors became brighter and more colorful. And then as I get to the very end of the light, all I could do is see this intense light. There was amazing light that I would call love. And it was pouring out of the top of this tunnel. And I went into the light and through a door. And so as I go through the door, there was an orb of light, kind of like an egg, that was waiting there for me. And the orb of light just basically told me, to follow him. But he didn't exactly talk through words. It was more like from communicating from the center of his being to the center of mine, like telepathy. And so I followed the being, the orb of light, into a hall of records, I guess, of some sort, of like a cloudy room. And I've heard some call it the Akashic Records. And inside of this, what was that now?
Yes, that's what it's known as, the Akashic Records, yes.
Yeah, Akashic Records. So what I knew about this place was that it recorded the life of every single bug, every plant, every flower, every tree, every person. There was a record of their life, but it was in a book. And inside of this book was 3-dimensional. And whenever you looked at it, it would just unfold the whole life in front of you, just like my life review. But for every single animal, plant, tree. And as you're going down this hallway, you can just look and you can see the different lives of different things. And then I came across this alcove where my book was. And I went in there and took my book with me, with this orb of light that was right beside me. And he was communicating with me about my life. And he was really a serious guy. And he was concerned about me. So probably for a good reason. But he took me to a room where it had this big, huge door. So you can imagine only a giant could fit through this door. I mean, and it was big, huge door. And so I opened the door, and he told me to keep my head down or I would die. And I instinctively knew that, I was alive down in the body somewhere, but it just didn't really go all the way through. But I just knew I needed to keep my head down. Now, I went into this room, and I'm not exactly walking. I'm kind of like stooped down, kind of like crawl, walking, kind of sort of like that, trying to keep my head down. And this amazing music was blasting through the corridors, and this light was just blasting through me. And on either side of me were these seats, like an arena. And there was every person or being that I would ever come in contact in my lifetime, in the present, in the future, and in the past. And they were all there cheering. And I thought, what in the world?
They're all cheering.
Cheering. Here I am, this kid, right? 21-year-old kid who's done nothing hardly for anyone ever. and I'm going forward, and I see these big, gigantic pillars, and embedded them inside of the pillars are these gems, and inside of those gems, they start talking. They're all stories of people's lives, and they were really interesting stories, but I couldn't pay attention to them because I was going forward to my destination, which was the judgment. And whenever you think of the judgment, you're thinking, wow, this is not going to be good.
Right.
So that's what I was. I wasn't even really thinking that way. I knew something big was about to happen. And so I go up to the steps, and I go up these steps, and then I realize I'm right there in the presence of what I call God. Now, whenever we talk about the word God, I didn't really think of God as love before my near-death experience. So this is really a new experience for me. And this being, whatever it is up there, and all I could do is feel the sense of humor that it had. And I say it, but it was really like a cross between the best attributes of a male and a female, but it was more feminine, kind of like from a grandmother's perspective. Fathers, they're real judgmental, and they're more concerned about what you did in your life. And grandmother is more, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I love you. Just tell me what happened in your life. And they're just all ears. They just want to know everything about you. So it's more like a grandmotherly love. You know what I'm saying? So this grandmotherly love was waiting there for me. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And you expecting, a judger.
Well, yeah, I don't know what I was expecting exactly, but that wasn't what I expected. I didn't expect this deity to have a feminine way of looking at things, a loving, forgiving. For example, whatever a child does, the grandmother, she doesn't care. It's not the grandson's fault. It's the other guy's fault, But it's right. It's the other guy's fault. It's not your fault. No matter if you have a smoking gun.
Not my grandson. Yeah. Right. Not my grandson. He's good.
No. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And that's the way I felt. I felt totally comfortable in front of this being. And the being was really jovial, kind of friendly, and laughing, just a little laugh going on inside of it. Like, I can't believe you got here. And now that you're here, I can't believe you just took your first steps in life. And life is going to be really different for you from now on. And that's I had this feeling. And the being that I have called God in the past, I don't always call that being God, but that being asked me, did you learn enough about love? And I thought that was really significant. Did you learn enough about love? Was not really a question. It's kind of rhetorical. Of course you didn't learn enough about love, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, who has, right? And so, and with my little life review that I had, I don't think I did any of the loving part of it. I did a lot of the receiving love from my family and my friends, and from the dog in the neighborhood or a cat maybe, but I have not been on the giving end of it. You know what I'm saying? And all I could do was reflect on my life review and think, well, what is love, right? I wasn't given the answer, and so my answer was, I've never been married and I've never had children. And I thought, well, that's the answer. That's the smart answer, right? And the second I said that, 20-year-old fella, I was kicked out of the throne room. It was as if here I was, I had judged myself, and I had requested to return to my body.
Great. Good choice.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It comes and goes whether I believe that was the good choice or not. But
well, did you have a wife and kids or not?
Exactly. I was kicked out of the throne room, and later on I did have children, but then I figured out, well, that wasn't the answer either.
Right.
We'll get to that in a bit, though.
Yeah, we're still on the journey with you.
Yeah. But I was kicked out of the throne room, and I was kicked into a big open field. And in the field, there was a road, and it was made out of what I would call translucent gold, not metal gold like you would think. You hear streets of gold in mythology of Christianity. And but it was gold. It was gold colored anyway.
Uh-huh.
And I was going down this road made out of gold, and I noticed that on the road there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds lined up for almost infinitely of these orbs of light, like myself, who was an orb of light, and all of these orbs of light in front of me. They were all marching towards the end. But along the road, I would look off to my right and off to my left, and there would be these beautiful landscapes. It was just a beautiful, perfect place. There was nothing dead at all. It was just beautiful flowers, beautiful hedges, beautiful landscapes. It was incredible. And I just thought, wow, this is beautiful. And as I'm going along, the music up in this place was incredible. It was thousands of voices, millions of voices, all lifted up singing. And not like I'm a really terrible singer. I mean, I will never sing in public, but I sing up. But I like to sing in the shower or around my office or whatever. So, but no, I'm not going to go and sing in front of an audience because I have a terrible voice. But everybody's voice there sounded right. It was as if your voice perfect. So all of the terrible singers out there, you have a chance,
You have a chance. You're going to have a nice voice. That's great.
So anyway, I'm thinking about how beautiful the singing is, and the musical instruments. There are just so many musical instruments, and they're all playing these beautiful songs. And the particular religion I had, they didn't believe in musical instruments. So I thought, well, they would be amazed to know what heaven's like.
Do you mind saying what religion you were in? Or you don't want to say that?
I hate to say that because there's a lot of beautiful people in that hateful, awful religion I was in.
Okay, we'll let it go.
I don't like to do that, because
it's when people sing together, they create a coherent field and they feel their oneness with each other.
That's so true. That's so true. There's a lot of beautiful people in almost every religion. And I say almost everyone, just all the ones I know. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, there might be some hate religion. I don't know what that is, but that's not what I felt. I didn't feel any connection at all to religion after that, though. But what I did feel was there's a lot of beautiful, gentle, loving people in every religion. And it's kind of hard to bash a religion whenever it's creating some beautiful people. So anyway, that's my opinion.
That's good. Okay.
So I'm going down this road, and I had this thought, and I said, I've done this many times before. And I had gotten on that road and lived a life, and gotten on that road and lived a life. I had done it many times before, and I thought, this is important. And I remembered it, and I remembered that very moment. It seems like I remembered a lot. And I thought, well, why would I keep coming back over and over and over? And I don't know if that means reincarnation, but it means something. And I was walking along this road, Golden Road, and then I saw this big door. And the door, I walked through the door into complete darkness. And I literally started falling as the second I left the door. And I was falling, and I looked behind me, and what I saw was a square-shaped heaven. I mean, I would say maybe a spaceship. It was what I would think of. It was perfectly square, and although I couldn't see the other sides of the square, I could just tell that it looked, at least on two sides of it, it looked like a perfect square. And it was out in the middle of space somewhere. So, spaceship, I don't know. It looked like a spaceship. And as I was falling out and I was looking back, I noticed that the orbs of light that were with me were following behind me in a crazy, like a Chinese dragon. It looked like tails going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Just thousands and thousands of souls going down and down away from heaven. And as we started going down, I noticed that some of those orbs of light would peel off and go to different places, different stars, and different wherever they went. I didn't follow them to where they went, but I knew they went somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So it was really amazing looking at the orbs of light. They were all so very different, and yet they had this. They had something inside of them that I would call love. And it was, all of them shared the same thing. And that's this light inside of them. It was like a piece of God. And that was really interesting to me.
So, where did you go?
Well, first of all, I was going through this darkness when I looked forward again. And I would see stars, little bitty points of stars, way far away. And then I started going through the stars, and there were millions of stars, and it was brighter and brighter and brighter. And then I would just go through all of these different galaxies and, I don't know, constellations, I guess is what I might think of. But I would just go blasting through them. And then I started slowing down a little bit as I started getting toward the Milky Way. And then I started seeing planets flying by. I would see, Mars and Venus and all those different planets. And, Mars is pretty distinctive, the red planet. And I kind of knew what that was. But I didn't know what the other planets were, but I could see them as I flew past them. And I would be flying along, and I didn't see all the planets, but I did see some of them. And I was flying along, and then I started noticing, I looked down at my hand and my arm, and I saw, oh, I can see my arm. It was the first time I could see my arm. So I'm starting to become somewhat physical in a sort of way, in that I could see my hands and see my arms. And I twisted them over, and I kind of thought, oh, that's neat. That's cool. And I'm going forward, and then I come to a point where I see a little blue ball of light. I mean, it's just a little blue ball Earth. And it's way out there. And as I get closer, I'm thinking that this is great. I'm going to go back. But then I stop right outside of the atmosphere. And I don't know, somewhere out, around where the moon might be. Although I didn't see the moon. I could just imagine somewhere between there and where the atmosphere ends. And I stopped. And I was met there by what I would call a godlike being that was like the one I believed as a kid. He was this fierce being with a brassy face, and he met with me. And although he didn't really speak in words, he kind of showed me what I was going to have to do to go back to my body. And I had to look at all these star charts. He was showing me all these charts of my life and the possibilities that I was going to be involved in, all the agreements I had to make, forever agreements. And for example, if I do this, then this happens or that happens. So it was like my whole life was laid out from the moment I go back to my body until I died. And it was really amazing. And I kept on going through these agreements that I had to make. And then he showed me what was going to happen. And what he did was he showed me the world as from the beginning of time all the way to the end of time. And I was looking at a camera, and there was nothing there at all. And all of a sudden, the Earth pops up out of nowhere, and I could see the Earth going through changes. First of all, it's really a beautiful, beautiful ball of blue, wonderful, beautiful Earth. And then it starts getting dark and dim. Then I could start focusing in on what was making it dark and dim. And I could see that the people and the plants and the trees and everything would grow darker, grays, and then it would expand out into brilliant light. And that people were influencing others, and trees were influencing others. Animals were influencing one another. And the influence that we have on others either makes the person that we're influencing, the plant, the tree, the animal, it either makes it darker or lighter. And what I understood from it is that each and every one of us has the power to make the world brighter or darker. And in a kind of like a butterfly effect, we can, by creating a light, make the world a little lighter, and then someone else makes it brighter, and then someone else into like a tsunami of light. And then the opposite is true as well. If those that are really dark-hearted, or they have a very unloving or unkind way of influencing the world to make the world darker. And then I saw the world go all the way to a very, very dark time, and I saw this time as the worst time for Earth, and it's in the future, and I don't know which future, but I know it's at some point. And I saw the world become completely dark. There's no electricity, there's no light, there's no fire. It's completely dark, and people are going around just crazy. I saw cannibalism. I saw people killing each other, eating their own pets, eating each other just to survive. And it was a real dark time for the Earth. And I don't know how long it was, because the time was kind of elastic. But what I did see is that there are going to be individuals and then groups of individuals who are going to just, no matter how dark it is, they're going to have a light in their soul, and it's going to become brighter and brighter, and people are going to be drawn to them. Now, those that are afraid and scary and killing each other, they're not going to want to be around those people, so they kind of leave each other alone. And what I noticed is they would start singing, and the singing somehow was just beautiful. It didn't mean it was a religious song. They could be just singing anything in a joyful voice, and people would be drawn to them, and there'd be little communities where these people who loved one another and they cared for each other would be drawn towards each other, while the rest of the crazy nuts are out there shooting each other and killing each other. And I just noticed that this is a really important decision-making time for human beings on Earth, to choose to not kill, to choose to not be violent and murderous. And I just realized how important that moment was, and that's going to help decide how your future goes. Because what happens after that time of darkness is there's a beautiful light, and it comes to the Earth, and the Earth starts to become lighter, and the light, first of all, goes into the oceans and goes deep, deep down into the oceans, and then it starts flowing across the oceans and into the rivers and streams and lakes. And then after it gets finished with all of the water in the world, then it starts going into the land, into the lowlands, and then it goes across the Earth, and then it goes into the mountains and goes deep, deep down in the mountains, and there's all kinds of beings underground. And it was really interesting to see the light overcoming everything, and all the darkness that's inside of you will just come off of you. So it's kind of like when I was going towards the tunnel, all the darkness will be coming off of you and everyone. And if you don't have much left there, You're all only filled with darkness, and there won't be anything left for you to save. But for all the people of the earth, it's going to be a fantastic day, in that they will no longer have to carry around this heavy burden of darkness. And it's a good time for the earth. And during that time, it goes on for thousands and thousands of years, that people will not have to use money anymore. There won't be any money. People will not need it because they won't be hungry. They won't, and I say won't be hungry, and that they don't have to eat to live, and that they won't have to do horrible, awful jobs they hate just so they can survive, because they won't have to worry about eating, and they won't have to worry about hunger or thirst or disease. And it's a beautiful time for the earth, and people may spend 100 years learning how to play a guitar or to play the drums or to learn how to dance. You know, for me, I've got 2 left feet, so it's a beautiful time if I wanted to learn how to dance. It's as if it's a beautiful time for everyone on earth. And you know, you think, well, I would get bored of that, but you know, people don't get bored of it. It's just a beautiful world, and people will pursue whatever their creative abilities are, and it goes on for thousands of years. But then everything ends in time, and I saw the world explode. It's done, kind of like a flower that's finished. It sends out its seeds out into the universe, and I saw from the world, I saw souls going out all across the universe. And then I was thinking, you know, something like that must have happened with other planets and other galaxies. You know, maybe the star explodes, but the souls are indestructible. They're little balls of light, and they go wherever they go. And so I just saw that all these beautiful souls who had spent thousands of years in this wonderful earth were going all over the universe, and there were the seeds for this beautiful world where they came from. It's going to make things better. But anyway, that's what I saw. But then I came back into my body, away from this 3D story that I saw, and I realized that that's how the world's going to end, because nobody will take living in that darkness anymore. They will refuse to enter a body where this darkness is. But then I'm back in my physical body, and I'm flying back to I'm back into this spiritual body where I can see my arms, and I'm flying back to my body, and I see the Great Lakes in front of me. And then all of a sudden I see rain clouds, and the rain's hitting the back of my arms, and I can see it hitting it. And then I see a vehicle, and a lady gets out of the vehicle and talks to a man in a truck. And then I see my little car, and it was a little ragtop MGB, and I could see my body in the car. And then I entered back into that body, and that lady out there in that flash flood, raining like crazy, walked out in her pretty dress and her high heels, and went out there and saved me. Well, that man that was in that pickup truck, I never met the guy, obviously called the ambulance service. And then the ambulance service came out there, and they put me in traction and took me to a hospital and saved my life. And it was quite a journey, though, to see all those things that I saw.
When you returned to your body, was it painful?
Oh yeah, I had I was bleeding profusely all over my body through the glass. My head hit the windshield, three times at least. I mean, the windshield and then the 2 side windows. So my head was really beat up really bad, and I had glass all in my body, my chest, my back, and I was in pretty bad shape. And then the lady came up to me, and I woke up, and she says to me, "Are you okay?" Of course I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." Of course I'm not fine at all. But my car was running, even after it rolled 3 times. I just
oh my God, it's still running.
And I'm out in this field, a muddy field, right? And she says, well, I think you need to get to a hospital. And I said, you're right. I said, would you follow me? I need to get my car out of here and get to the hospital.
You were going to drive.
I was gonna drive. And she says, you know what? You probably shouldn't do that. And so why don't you, and she started rummaging through my car, and she found a blanket, and she laid it on the ground in this muddy field. And then I don't know, she poured me onto the blanket, and I went into shock. I was freezing cold. It was like my whole body was just frozen, and I was so cold. And then the people from the ambulance came forward, and they were just there like within 5 minutes. It was like a minor miracle or a miracle.
Wow.
You know, I've never ever said thank you to any of them, and I know they know it somehow that they saved me, but it was a big deal. But they took me to a hospital in Toledo where they took care of me, and they put me in traction. And the next year was just an amazing amount of pain and suffering, horrific pain in traction, and all kinds of terrible pain. And I still to this day had chronic pain. It comes and goes, and I'll have it for years of horrible suffering, and then it'll go away, and then I'll get back to work, and then it happens again. And so over and over, that's happened throughout my life since that time.
Wow. Sasha, do you have any questions or comments?
Let me just think for a minute. Wow. It's terrific, fantastic. I'm just so taken up by your story. It's like I'm living it with you. But what I was thinking is that when Mike, first of all, there was We Are the World, and then there was a whole bunch of other things like Bobby Darin's We the Children Don't Want Any War, and it's like these worldwide sing-alongs were describing in the present the very, very things you were talking about people singing and feeling their community and their love for one another through the song. It's like your vision is just so exactly what's happening, and so right on in our means of feeling each other and sorting out the people that want to sing.
It was great. It was truly to see people who are starving to death, who will not kill anybody to eat, for people who won't kill someone to live. You know what I mean? These are the people they're starving, and they say, you know what? The answer to this complete darkness is not going to be to kill people. If the answer to this is to be joyful, and that's the only thing that makes anything any better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So.
I was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just looking through it, and it said you were calling this being God, and you had a religious background, and so we tend to interpret what we see after death, from what I hear, in our own, symbology that we have from life. So you were calling it God. Now looking back on that, from how many years was that? How old are you now?
I'm in my late 50s, so it was over 30 years ago. And
right.
No, I certainly don't call either of the beings I met, the one that I met outside the earth, I don't call that being God. And mostly, I just think of the being in the light. I call it the loving being of light. I've called it Yah as a kind of like a symbology for a Jewish version of God, which is a very loving version of God. And whenever you hear Jehovah, that's God's mean. Whenever you hear the word Jehovah mentioned in the Torah or the Christian Bible, that guy's not nice. He likes killing people. He's the bad guy.
Right.
He's the villain. But there's a nice version of God in there, mostly called Yah, kind of like Papa. You know, he's even though it's masculine, and that's not the being I met. The being I met was more feminine. But it's called Yah. It's a very loving being that loves you and never, ever is jealous and just loves you forever and forgives you. Now, the other version of it is the one I met outside the earth. Now, he was very critical of me, and he was very harsh. And he believed in the system that he had of darkness and light and suffering, and how suffering teaches us lots of stuff, or lots of things, right? And I just
right.
That's not the right way to teach. Well, you know, whenever we have children that we care about, we don't want to beat them so that they'll learn their lessons. We just want them to figure it out in a beautiful way and let their life unfold in a beautiful way, instead of, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to beat you. You know?
Right. So you came back from this, and you were on the way to military school. I mean, your story. So what? After you got out, that took a long time. How long were you laid up? Like a year or something?
Well, I was in and out of the hospital, in traction in the emergency room, and then I don't know, I was really close to dying lots of times. But then, you know, it's amazing how, you know, you have things that you call dreams, but they're not really dreams. They're actual experiences that you remember as if it was just right now. And I would remember this being that I met outside the earth, and I realized that he was in charge of the earth, every single person in it, and that he was, I call them off-worlders. Now, the off-worlders are not necessarily good nor bad. There's some that are loving, some that are not. But they each and every one of them have extra dimensions. They have the ability to control what goes on. Now, this guy that I met outside the earth, he was definitely a big wig guy. You know, he had a brassy face, and he had this big white flowing beard, and he was full of power and full of vengeance and anger and all this thing. I never thought of him as God, because I had already met the one that I wanted. I mean, if you got to choose a God, you want one that loves you.
Right.
You don't want this other, the fellow that I met. You don't want him.
How do you know that he was in charge? What made you get that idea that he was in charge of the earth?
Well, because...
And we're coming up on the breaks. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, because you had to sign a contract with him. In other words, all these stars were lined up this way and that way, and you had to make agreements. If I go back, then this happens, and if I go back, my whole life is going to be laid out in a series of events, and I don't always have to choose one thing over the other. But if I choose a decision, then something's going to happen to me, and then from that decision, another one happens. But everybody's in this big, gigantic Rubik's Cube, and we're all making these decisions, and we all interact with each other. And so all kinds of things that you think are going to happen, you know, everybody thinks, well, I'm going to meet the love of my life. And guess what? They never do, okay? I'm going to meet someone who's going to take care of me, and then they're never taken care of. And I just saw how it's kind of a trick. And that you think that things are going to turn out really well for you, but you don't really believe that the worst thing that could happen is going to happen to you. You only think, oh, well, everything's going to be just fine, because you see the best possible path that you could possibly do, and things go great in that one. But then, as things go wrong and you make decisions that are not what you were supposed to make, and others.
Hold that thought. We're on the commercial break. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, talking about decisions and how they affect each other.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more than speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Bridgeton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you bring the machine, will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Didn't want to go there. So let's pick up the story there. So after you came back to the real world, how was this effect on your life at that time? What was your next step? Where did you go? And what happened?
Well, I'm going to tell you that I was in the hospital for a very long time, and I became more aware. I was aware of other spiritual beings. I mean, I could see the darkness in some people. I could see brilliant light coming out of others, their auras. But there was some different people as well. I call them people. They were the off-worlders. And I noticed that they would look at me, and they're like watching me. And I started noticing them watching me. And, for example, today, when I pulled up in front of the house, a person pulled up right in front of me and stopped their car and looked at me and then drove on. Now, why did they do that? There was no reason for them to do that. But that's just, that's a person that looks like a regular person, but they're watching me. And it's not just them. They're watching all of us, okay? If we start to shake the tree a little bit and make things a little different or too different, then guess what? They will try to stop us in some way, or they'll help us out. And there are some helpers, and there are some that are trying to stop us. Just like I was stopped from destroying the world, which was a good thing. There are other spiritual beings that are helping us, and you think that they're helping you because they're just good guys or good gals, right? But it isn't just that. They want us to continue doing what we're doing because we're following the plan, and they help us along in our plan. And when we buck the system, then they hurt us. And so it's not a very good system. It's more of the system of the being that I met outside the earth. And that if you do good things, then you're going to be blessed, right? But if you do things that are not according to their plan that you have agreed to, then you get hurt. And so it's a punitive system. And I don't like how the world is run with so many people hurting, and so many people who lost their loved ones, and so many people who are committed to violence. And the whole world system, these off-worlders, they treat us as if we're pawns. Okay, we're pawns in this global chess game, and we have to pick a flag. My flag is better than your flag, right? And and so you see them waving flags in the United States, and they're waving flags in Turkey, and they're waving flags in Russia, and they're waving flags all over the world. But it's my team is better than your team, and it's this competitiveness that they want. And the off-worlders consider us to be their entertainment. In other words, we're entertaining to them, and it has a value like money. Now, it may not be money the way we perceive it, but it has a value, and we're entertaining to them. And so they don't want us to be getting along. They don't want us to find the love that we have, because there's no drama there. They incite drama in us by separating us and dividing us through religion, through our nationality, xenophobia, through homophobia, through uber nationalism. It's just a different kind. The Democrats, the Republicans, it's over and over. It's millions and millions of times they divide us. But I'm just saying that they control some of that. Kind of like if you have a pit bull, you want to feed your pit bull, even though you know it's a violent dog, and so it's a violent dog, and you feed it because you want it to continue being violent. The off-worlders continue feeding violent people because they like it. They enjoy their pet, which is the human beings, doing things that are destructive. And so pitting them one against another is what happens. And I saw this in great detail when I saw the orbs of light, and they were interacting with other orbs of light. That it's a pitting one against another. But then there's this other thing it's stronger, and that's our love. And the love is actually much more strong than the darkness. And so the light will actually, whenever people start loving one another, it builds up so much faster. It just surges across the earth. And I just hope for this day when we can reject the off-world as violence. For example, if you go to a store like a Walmart or something, and you go in the toy aisle, there's literally every single toy has a bomb, a missile, a gun, a sword, right? And so the video games, like the children of today, especially males, they play video games where they actually commit murder 100 times in one video game, or 1,000.
Right.
And it's not just happening in the United States. It's happening in Russia. It's happening in China. It's happening in Japan. It's happening in Middle Eastern countries. We take on the role of being a violent individual. If they just took away the violence, nobody really wants to hurt and kill each other. You have to be coerced into it through your religion. Right. You have to be coerced into it through your politics. You have to be coerced into it through your family. The family tells you it's a good thing to go off and kill people, kill commies for mommy. Or for me, I was thinking killing Muslims for Jesus, and that's a mean thing to say, but that's exactly what we're doing. If you're on what I would, when I was a teenager, what I would have considered to be, a good Christian. Now, when it says "Thou shalt not kill," that doesn't mean thou shalt kill Muslims and atheists and homosexuals and agnostics or Jews or Muslims or Christians. So it's like, don't kill anybody. Right. And there's no but after the word "thou shalt not kill." You know what I'm saying?
I got it. Amen. So I got stuck with these orbs that were doing what? What were they? They were inciting violence? Oh, what? Tell me about these orb things. No, what were they?
The orbs are just stuck. They're the bodies. They're our spirits. They're round and they belong to everything. They're this ball of loving light that goes into a body. But the off-worlders that I was talking about, they're very different. They have another dimension. They don't literally just live here. They live in another dimension. And the reason why I call them off-worlders, some people call them angels, but some of the angels are not such good angels. They're very tall and beautiful, but that doesn't make their hearts beautiful, and it doesn't make them right. I call them off-worlders. Some people will call them aliens. I don't. Just because you're beautiful and bright and tall, and you have wings, doesn't make you a beautiful person. Inside.
So how do we not get fooled by them? That's the key.
Well, I think I don't know if there's any getting around it. They're going to influence the world. I mean, there's going to be wars because they like wars. They enjoy it because they get to play the Guardian of the Galaxy, or they get to play G.I. Joe, or they get to they get to play this in this game, this chess game. But I actually started being abducted and watched in a real way, even while I was still in the military and I was in the hospital bed. I was in my bed, and then all of a sudden, my soul left my body, and it started running down the hall, and it went through the window, and I was that person, and I started running away and flying almost down to the ground, and my physical body wasn't attached at this time. And then these trucks start coming, and these grays, I call them grays because I didn't know what they were. I had no idea what a gray was when I was 21 years old. These gray beings with big, gigantic, well, not gigantic, but really big heads. They were like following behind me. And then eventually I was captured and brought back to my body. So I obviously went back to my body and didn't appreciate it because I was in really bad pain.
Can you do me a favor and sometime later look through, like Google gray aliens, and see if you can find one that closest resembles the one that you were, interacting with? I would love to see which grays that resemble closely. There's so many artist renditions of all the grays now because there's a huge experiencer movement out there, people having experiences. So anyway, if you have a chance, I'd love that. I'll put it on your website. Which grays? Okay, so they took you, huh?
Well, yeah, this military, these people they weren't the American military that I was used to. They were in a kind of a khaki but really sharp corners on their uniforms, like a real highly starched khaki uniforms. They didn't have camouflage on them like we had back then, and they had severe cuts on their hats were real sharply cut and like straight up and down, and they didn't have any insignia, and they were the ones chasing me in these trucks, and eventually they got me. Okay, they got me, and somehow, even though I was a spirit, they were able to capture my escaped soul and drag it back to my body. And so I was put back in my body because obviously I had some importance in what I was doing. It was going to affect the world in some way, or they would have just let me die, of course. But what happens whenever you have a near-death experience, you have a raised awareness of difference, of things that are different. And I was driving along after I got out of the military, and I had taken on a job of teaching blind individuals woodworking and archery. And so, you think, how in the world do you do that? That's a really long story. But the matter is, yes, you can, and it's really cool. But we were driving to go to teach these blind children archery, and we were driving along, and it was near Marfa, Texas. And I don't know if you know anything about the Marfa Lights or anything like that, but it was near Marfa, Texas. And in the mountains, we were driving along, and there was a UFO in the saddle of the mountain about 100 feet up off the deck, and it was just sitting there, and it was daytime. It wasn't like I was looking at some kind of silly light that's off in the distance and a fuzzy something, right? It was a metal UFO, as big as a battleship, out there just floating up above the ground, and it was like a perfectly seamless saucer on top of another saucer, and then on top of the saucer was like a top hat, like a observation something or another. And I've looked on the internet over and over and over, and I've never found that exact one. Most of them have rounded kind of tops, but this one was perfectly vertical, the top hat part of it, the observation deck. But anyway, the point is that I was with 4 individuals. One of them was blind. He didn't see it. Well, that makes sense, right? But there were 2 other men that were there, and then one guy goes, "Hey, that's the reason why people believe in UFOs. Look." And I go, "Wow, yes, it is." And the other guy is looking at it. He's looking straight at it, and he says, "I don't believe in UFOs," but he's looking at it. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I can see him tracking the UFO. He's looking right at what I'm looking at. And what I think what happens is when you have a near-death experience or some kind of transformative experience, you start seeing things that are different. For example, if you buy a Volkswagen, if you buy a Volkswagen, a Volkswagen Beetle, you may hardly ever see a Volkswagen Beetle before you buy one. But after you buy a Volkswagen Beetle, you see Volkswagen Beetles everywhere.
Right, yeah. Well, there's also some heightened spiritual awareness and psychic abilities that happens from interacting with extraterrestrials and having near-death experiences. So that is something we're finding that happens universally. That, especially the NDEs, you get more psychic. Yeah.
Well, it's not just psychic. It was a real thing. I mean, I was looking at it, and right, you're able to see a spectrum that maybe normal people don't see. Maybe. But you had 4 people. One didn't see because they were blind, and 3 other people saw the same thing. So that's one level. But sometimes there's people that can see things kind of out beyond the spectrum, like a dog can hear beyond the spectrum. And there's some people that when you're with them, you can see the UFO. So people may see more when they're with you because you're somehow changing awareness or opening up portals or something. Right. Anyway, well, I don't want to know. For sure. I was starting to see things that were way different than other people saw. Yes. So you saw this UFO, which was large, the size of the metallic battleship. Right. Or you can't. And it had an observation deck. That sounds. Maybe you could draw it. Are you able to draw it all? Oh, sure. Yeah, I could draw it. It looks just like a saucer on top of a saucer, with no windows, no nothing, and then a top hat on top of it. I mean, it was like a perfectly machined UFO. If there are listeners out there who want to let me know, I would love to get an email with a picture of one. It's Rudi Rudenski, R-U-D-I, Rudenski, R-U-D-E-N-S-K-I, at yahoo.com. Just send me a picture of one. I would love to on the site. Yeah, I would love for somebody to send me a picture of that. I'd like to see it too. AquarianRadio@gmail. Yeah. But there's other things. I saw other things. I was actually abducted by a UFO when I started talking about these things to people. I would talk about how I saw the UFO, and instantly the watchers would watch me much more closely, and I could literally hear the feedback from speakers in my walls, from microphones, and they weren't really there, but it was like spiritually they were there, and they were listening into my conversations, and they would be there, and I would hear the feedback like from a speaker, and so I started noticing these things, and then while I'm starting to talk about this stuff, and I'm really concentrating on the UFO phenomena, I was actually abducted by a UFO, and it was just really I mean, I don't know if it's a classical abduction or what, but what happened was I was leaving the office to go visit a blind client, and I looked down at the clock and it said 11 o'clock. Now, 11 o'clock was the time I was supposed to get there by noon. It was an hour away. And I'm driving along in my car, and I'm at a stoplight, and then an hour passes, and I'm still at that light, and I look at my clock, and it says 12 o'clock. And so the sun had changed in the sky. And so I know that something happened to me, and I'm guessing it was an abduction. I mean, where did I lose an hour? You know?
Yeah, well, that's one of the indicators of missing time. Right. So it's ideal if you can schedule a session where you get regress hypnotized and see what happened. That's an indicator. See what comes out of your own subconscious. Yeah, that's good. Sasha, any comments, feedback, questions?
Sometimes your people are triggered by some kind of code word and in some kind of automatic program. There's other causes of missing time, and so you don't know where you're going to go when you start exploring what happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just say I was abducted, but something certainly happened during that hour.
Right. Yeah. Well, what's this giant shadow being?
Okay.
We have our list of.
This is something that happened to me with another witness. I'm not just talking about stuff that I made up in my head or I believe happened. I saw them clearly. I was in my studio apartment in overlooking a park, and at the beginning of the day, that park is really beautiful. But then when it turns dark, there's shadows that will go over the park. But right before it became dark, I saw a shadow walk across the park. It was about a 7.5 foot tall shadow, and it walked across the park. Now, what was interesting about it is there was a homeless guy in the bushes, and he was looking at it too, and he was like raising his head, and he's got eye contact with me, and he's looking at it, and I'm looking at it from one side, and the other guy's looking at it from the other side. And, I let it go. I didn't ever talk about anybody about it, I just let it go. But then a few months later, I was looking out into the park, and it was after dark, like at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I looked out of the park, and on a bench out there was this dark shadow being that seemed like it had substance, but it was made out of shadow. And I don't know how to explain that except it had red eyes. And it turned around whenever I noticed it and looked at me. And that was a really creepy feeling, and to be looked at. And it really instilled fear in me, and I thought, wow, right? But right. I was semi sleepwalking at that point. It was, way dark. I think it was 4 a.m. or so, something like that. And so one of my roommates was in this, studio. We shared this front room to just kind of go up there and just to eat there or to just have a meeting place, right? And so my friend wakes up 30 minutes later than I did. I guess I was at 4 o'clock, and they woke up at 4:30. And the next morning, I said, "Wow." She said, "Did you see that dark shadow?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw it." And I saw it at 4 o'clock. And she said, "Well, can you describe it?" It was a very tall man with like a suit on, like a real straight suit, like a big formal suit on, and it was huge, right, with red eyes. And I said, "Well, yes, I saw the same thing." But I think that lots of times there's probably people see those things. They see UFOs, they see grays, they see these shadow beings, or they see Bigfoot, or they see fairies, or whatever they see, and they blow it off as well, I just saw it, and it may or may not be true, but they just go on with their life. And because we don't want to be ridiculed for saying we saw a Bigfoot. Okay, and the reason why I say Bigfoot, because years later, a guy told me how to find Bigfoot. He says, go to a rest area, and if you smell like the most horrific smell you ever smelled in your life, and you may be in the presence of a Bigfoot. And so I just tried it out. So I went to where I saw a little place that you pull off on the side of the road, and you can see beer cans and trash and things like that. And I got out and I smelled the smell. And so I literally was terrified because I sensed something was right beyond the bushes that I was in. And so then I go back into my car and I take a picture through my window because I want to get the heck out of there. And I feel like I captured a Bigfoot, and you can even see my eyes looking in through the window, looking at it, and they're big and wide. But I sent a picture to you, and it is fuzzy. I have to admit that it's fuzzy, but you can see the cone head.
Yeah, it's fuzzy.
But you can see a cone head, and you can see broad shoulders, and it's not a bear, and it's a Bigfoot, and I think
Bigfoot.
It is a Bigfoot, and I found one, and I saw one. But what it is that these fairies and Bigfoot and shadow beings and UFOs, we're not supposed to see them because we're supposed to be going to work and doing our job and paying our mortgage and taxes and supporting the economy for the off-worlders. That's our job. Just like we have a job, we agree to it, or we can't come here. And when we see things like that, we just ignore them. We just let them drift out of our memory. We have near-death experiences, and we just forget them. Well, it wasn't real. I really didn't see angels. I really didn't see God. I didn't see Jesus. Or they just blended into their life, and they forget about it. But I don't forget. I remember.
No, who could you?
You know what I mean?
You gave me a picture of one of those little birds, the black
seagulls.
Eyes.
Oh yeah, the seagulls. I'll try to explain why I take pictures. I take pictures all the time as kind of what I saw in heaven is that we take our memories of our best memories of nature with us. And so what I do is whenever I see a pretty flower, I go take a picture of it. And whenever I see a seagull or a swan or a blue heron, I take a picture of it. Or if I see a pretty waterscape or landscape, I take a picture of it because I want to have a heaven that looks like that. You know what? I don't want to have one where I'm in a combat zone shooting at people. I want to have a peaceful, beautiful place. And I think that we build our heaven right here on earth. We build it out of our best memories, out of our hopes, out of our aspirations. And I believe that we can literally take our best experiences from this world and create a better playground for us to play in when we go on to that next world. And so I take pictures. If anyone wants to see my pictures, they can go to my Instagram account or Twitter account. It's just Rudi Rudenski. And I really would appreciate just anything that if you listen to this radio show and you are just interested, just message me. I'd love to talk more about this subject. I can't stop talking about it. It's just the craziest thing. I see things that other people don't see, but I also see beauty. And I didn't really see beauty before. All I thought was in terms of being an ultra super competitive guy. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So this totally shifted you into a different personality. Some people become walk-ins, like one personality leaves or one soul leaves and the other come in. Do you think you're the original soul that came in and was born into your body, or do you think somebody else came in?
I think that angry young man is still inside of me. And
okay.
I really do. I think he's inside of me, and I get anxiety attacks from it. I guess they call it post-traumatic stress disorder, where my chest starts hurting and I feel like I'm dying. Whenever I see whenever I see bad things happening, if I see, like I can't even watch television because when I see people hurting people on television, it hurts me down to my core. It hurts. You know what I'm saying?
You know, one thing, if you could talk to the angry young man that's still inside you and know that the function of anger is appropriate action. And I think that you can tell that angry part of you that it can channel its energy into love because the energy is just for appropriate action.
That's a beautiful thing to say. I'll tell you this. That whenever I go back again, I'm going to have a whole lot better appropriate actions than I did before. I know that. I mean, I'm not a saint. I'm not a Jesus or Buddha, or I'm not anybody even that wonderful. I do wonderful things sometimes though, and it's not every day, and it's not all the time. But I know that when I get my life review next time, I'm going to have those moments when I cared about people and I showed love, and I'm going to have moments when I was looking at nature and I enjoyed it and I was admiring it for what it was. I appreciate that comment. Appropriate actions. I'm doing more appropriate actions now than I did before my near-death experience. Absolutely appreciate that comment.
Cool.
Well, it seems like you've turned your life around. It's almost like an It's a Wonderful Life type life review you have that transformed you and made you a different person and gave you a chance of redeeming yourself and being better and experiencing, what you wanted. You wanted love. And even though it didn't turn out exactly the way you wanted it, you still, you have love. Now you have children, and you have, your world is broader than I'm going to go kill people, It's, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't turn out to be a perfect person. But I have had perfect moments, and I have had beautiful moments, and I have a whole lot more of them than I did before. Absolutely. I want to leave this world making it a brighter place than it was, than the way I was perceiving it. I mean, I don't hate people now. I get angry sometimes at people when they drive stupid, like they're going to run over children or they hurt each other, or especially on television or those video games. When I see them, it really hurts me really hard. It's like a dagger getting stuck into my chest, and I feel pain, and it hurts. And
I can't watch violence anymore. When I was younger, I guess I was desensitized to it, but I can't watch that stuff now at all. No, I understand that. And Sasha's never been able to watch it. I could watch more violence than he could, but I can't even watch it now. Something has shifted. So, well, it's not a bad thing. It's okay. You don't have to watch violence. Maybe that'll force them if their ratings go down, it'll force them to make things that are, nice and kind and loving. Okay, I'm doing a little time check here. We're coming up on 40. It's 47 before the hour. What would you like to focus on with the last 10 minutes or so of our show? What would you like to make sure that our listeners hear from you? Because this is going to get archived and repeated and spread around the world. So what would you like us to cover?
Well, you know what I'd like to cover is that everything spiritual isn't good. And there's lots of beings out there that are trying to influence us. And some of us are being influenced in a negative way because we already had those negative thoughts, but they're actually keeping us going. And to recognize that and to not participate in violence, to not let your children participate in violence, and to discourage violence and drama. Also drama. Lots of people want to go watch television where there's horrible drama, where people are yelling and saying ugly things to each other, and it's like their favorite thing in the world is to watch these ugly shows where people are hateful towards one another. And just make your life more peaceful. And I mean, I've learned that anything that's not loving, not peaceful, not kind, not compassionate, it doesn't leave with us. whenever we leave this world, we take with us our acts of kindness, and that's what we get. And so, if you're going to be living to make $1, and that's all you care about, you're getting nothing. And if you're living to, and you're thinking that you're doing such a great job of being a killer for Jesus or Muhammad, or if you think that those things are really good and beautiful to you, they're not going to go with you after you leave this world. And I mean, that's what the message I want. And if you have angels that are not taking care of you and not helping you towards being more peaceful and loving, fire them. I know that there is some kind of rule or law out there, because I know I talked to those guys, and that you have to give them permission to run your life, and you don't have to keep your angels if they're not taking care of you. Get a new batch.
Why would you give them permission to run your lives?
That's part of
you
the
have
rules.
You have to give them. Have to give them permission. You said.
When you come into this world, the God of this world, or the off-worlder, as I call him, he is making the rules, right? But some of the rules are you can reject the controller. In other words, there's somebody watching you. There is. Some people call him a higher self. Some people call him your guardian angel. But some guardian angels are doing a rotten job out there. And I don't think that they have our best interest at heart. They're trying to keep us going so they can keep us in our warlike state so they can play their chess game. But you don't have to play that chess game. And it may be boring to them. And so if it's boring to them, then ask for a different angel that would appreciate you, or a different off-worlder. We're kind of like their pets. If you quit feeding your pet, guess what? Your pet isn't going to hang around you anymore. And so if they quit feeding you, and they quit feeding you to the point of starvation, see if you can ask for a different guardian angel, or a different being that's going to help you in this world, because there are lots of them out there, and some of them they honestly do want to help us. I'm sure that you talked about grays. I bet you there are some grays that want to help, and there's some that don't. Find one that does. You know?
Right. Sasha, what do you think about that being that rules the earth? What do you think that is?
Well, there's a lot of ways of looking at it, but the Anunnaki believe that it's Prince Marduk, or Satan, the son of Lucifer, the bringer of light, and that the time of Satan or Lucifer is over. He has brought us to the place of a technological singularity where now we're ready to enter global society. And once we have a coherent field, and I think singing is the way. I love the kind of thing that you've been telling us, and I feel so inspired. I just love your journey, and I feel like it's almost like I came along with you, and I could experience the things that you were saying. It was almost hypnotic. And thank you so much. I just loved your show.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate y'all interviewing me. I feel I have a story inside of me, and it's like I just can't wait to tell it again, because I really want people to get that kindness is the solution, and love is like a vague word. It's like it requires that I love you, you love me, but kindness doesn't require you to do anything back. You just
right. It's empathy. If you can be empathetic, put yourself in the other person's shoes, see things from their perspective, and the common ground is always there. And what the common ground is love. You find out who they love. Oh, they love their kid, they love their dog, they love their soil, and you can relate to that. And that's the common ground of everybody. Empathy for what each other loves.
Wow, I like that. Empathy is absolutely something I had none of at one point, and I think if you talk about a walk-in, maybe I learned that lesson, and maybe it was instilled in me or planted in me. I mean, I literally felt like I was a psychopath bent on destroying most of the people on Earth.
Wow.
And you know, you can do, like, for somebody that's had a spiritual experience in a fundamental Christian church, you can imagine going out of that church, and if you had a spiritual experience, you can take it with you and take Jesus with you, and in your mind burn the old church and say to Jesus, do you want to be my guide, or should you take me to another guide like Kuan Yin or somebody else, and who's the right guide for me now? And you can do it. You can take the good stuff and not have to leave it behind and just come to a higher place that's right for you right now.
Well, I absolutely. I'm not particularly enamored by any religion, but what I am enamored by is there's beautiful people in every religion, and they somehow, even through the ugliness that they may be professing, from the teachers and the clerics and the rabbis and the priests and the preachers and all those guys that are saying ugly things to their classroom and their students and their children, and they're saying these ugly things, but somehow there's this beautiful, loving spirit that rises up in every church, amongst every group, and those people are the ones that I go stay in your religion and change it from the inside out instead of from the outside, and saying walk away from it. Get in there and just tell them about kindness and compassion and mercy, but not just, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, we do. Thank you so much for coming on today, Rudy. It was a great show. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, listeners.
Aloha.
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 Aloha. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was?
Who?
Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our